Welcome to T-Mobile Park and our special edition Hall of Fame Roundtable presented by T-Mobile. Let me introduce myself. Normally I'm up in the booth there. I'm your public address announcer here at T-Mobile Park, Tom Hutler, welcoming you to a really fun event. We're glad to have you with us. We're going to meet some gentlemen here that you're very familiar with, but let's introduce them one by one just so you have a chance to show your appreciation. First of all, the American League Rookie of the Year in 1984. He spent 8 years as a Mariner, averaging 20 homers a year. Inducted into the Emeritus Hall of Fame in 1997. Forever to be known as Mr. Mariner, Alvin Davis. He was one of the top catchers in the game during his 12 years in Seattle, including an all-star stint in 1996. Pretty good at the plate, too, including that memorable inside the park grand slam in 1998. Mariner Hall of Famer as of 2012, along with Randy Johnson, Dan the Man Wilson. Somebody had to keep these guys on the field during these years, and this was the guy, the best in baseball. 35 years as head athletic trainer for the Mariners, transitioning to athletic trainer emeritus last season. But every guy you'll see up here will let you know how important this guy was to their success on the field. Athletic trainer emeritus Rick Griffin. A voice as familiar as the crack of the bat or a train passing by. Over 3 decades calling Mariners baseball, the recipient of the 2017 Keith Jackson Award at Seattle Sports Commission for excellence in communicating the sports stories of the state of Washington, Rick Riz. First ballot Hall of Famer in 2016, climbing the walls of the outfield, hitting balls over the walls of the outfield. Hall of Famer number 24, Ken Griffey Jr. And next, the man who really needs no introduction, but we're going to introduce him one more time. Just inducted a few short weeks ago into Cooperstown, number 11, Edgar Martinez. All right, one more time. All right, at ease, gentlemen. We want to just kind of spend here this half hour kind of talking about your memories of Edgar, what he meant to you as a teammate, what he meant to you as a broadcaster in the case of Rick, or as an athlete in the clubhouse in the case of Rick Griffin. And now I want to start with you because he came up and down and up and down and up when you were here in your stint with the Mariners. And you got to see this guy not only as a developing hitter, but as what I think a lot of people aren't completely cognizant of, is that he was a really good third baseman until some injuries and things derailed his career. But talk about kind of watching Edgar try to get that foothold with this club.
Yeah, going back to 1983, Edgar and I were talking down in the tunnel in the clubhouse earlier. That's when we first met each other, Instructional League in Tempe, Arizona in 1983. Both of us infielders, so we worked together in our work group, usually played together in that same group there. 6 weeks down in the heat in the desert, trying to carve our way out, trying to get here to Seattle. Working with Marty Martinez, who was our infield coordinator, and I know Edgar will talk more about Marty here and what he means to him personally, but what he meant to all of us as kind of our mentor and the guy that was going to show us what we needed to know to become Major League infielders. And, you know, my impressions of Edgar being a first baseman, having to learn guys' arms, how they move, their hands, everything just stood out to me. Edgar was so accurate with his arm, strong arm, could throw from all kind of different positions, sweet hands, dulce manos, as we called them back in the day, good feet. Marty was always hammering us about our feet, right? You know, good feet make Major League infielders. That was Marty's big thing. And you got to move your feet, you know, you got to move your feet. And so we tried to take that to heart, and I think it worked out. What do you think, Edgar?
Yeah, it worked out very well.
Dan, of course, you were a teammate with Edgar for a long time. You witnessed the work ethic and the dedication to his craft, and you were very much the same. Talk about what he was like as a teammate, not only for the established veterans, but especially for the guys that were coming up.
Yeah, when I got here, I was a very young player, so had some great mentors to kind of follow in the footsteps of, and Edgar was certainly that guy. I mean, for me, I used to kind of sit back in my locker and just watch Edgar and see what he did. He'd go to the batting cage early, and he had any number of drills that he would do. He'd invent drills on the fly, I think, a lot of times because he wanted to find a certain fundamental or work on a certain part of his swing. And just to see him go about his business every day, walk by his locker, he's weighing his bats to like the 10th of an ounce. I mean, it's unbelievable how detail-oriented, meticulous Gar was about hitting. And to see him take that much pride and that much pay attention to detail so much, maybe kind of as a young player go, I got to take this pretty serious. This is a pretty serious thing. And to see that on a daily basis, day in, day out, in the cage, Gar was a guy you watched him and you learned by example. Gar just led everybody by example by what he did on a daily basis.
We had a very similar discussion to this in Cooperstown. For those of you who were there, you might have been there. And we talked with Rick Griffin about Edgar's hamstring issues and also some maybe not as well known to a lot of people, but the vision issues that he had to deal with in his career. And Rick, you did a lot of work with Edgar to keep him healthy.
Yes, I tried. We spent a lot of time together. I think Edgar was probably number 2 all time. Jay Buhner, of course, was number 1 as far as time in the training. But Edgar and I spent a lot of time together working on his hamstring and talking. And Edgar was an innovator as far as the things that he did in the weight room before the game and after the game. And Dr. Doug Nicotani worked real close with Edgar as well as with Alvin Davis and really helped those guys with some eye issues. And people don't realize the daily work that Edgar had to do to prepare himself to play with his eye condition. And I think if you realized how difficult it was for him, you'd be even more amazed at the amount of greatness that he produced on the field because he really had to work hard with his eye condition to get out there and hit the baseball.
Mr. Riz, you got the chance to call many of this man's ball games, thousands of at-bats, and every one of them a treat because you knew how much every pitcher in the league feared facing him and that at any time something incredible could happen when he came to the plate.
Every time Edgar came up to home plate, you know something good was going to happen. He was going to put the bat on the ball, put the ball in play hard with authority. And in Game 5 of the American League Division Series, we knew something very good was going to happen. After Randy gave up a run in the top of the 11th inning, Joey had the bunt base hit, down 5-4. And then Junior came up about 2 pitches later and got a base hit up the middle, first and third. Mariners got a tie game, or they're going to take the lead somehow, some way. And Dave Niehaus, was doing the play-by-play and made that incredible call. And Edgar took a fastball right down the middle of the plate from Jack McDowell. But the beauty of Edgar Martinez was that he knew what the pitcher was going to throw before the pitcher threw the pitch. He struck him out on the forkball in the 9th inning. Edgar was waiting for the forkball, the great swing, the double down the left field line. Joey, of course, scored easily. This guy ran faster than I've ever seen him run before in my life and scored all the way from first base. And the Mariners won 6-5, won the division series. And Dave Niehaus had the great call. I took off my headphones. I'm jumping up and down, running with Junior, because we knew that this guy was going to come through because he always seemed to come through. He was one of the greatest hitters in the game of baseball because of his ability to hit a baseball, but also know what that pitcher was going to throw. And because of what you did during your entire career in the postseason, that's why we have this beautiful ballpark and why we're so successful. That's why Edgar deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the greatest hitters of all time.
Junior, as his teammate for many years, and it's well documented, the work ethic and everything else, but you also had the chance to have some great times with this guy. This group here, and some of the other guys that we had down in Cooperstown, Jay and Jamie, you guys have all become such a fabric in this part of the fabric of this community. Talk about being his teammate and being part of some of those very, very memorable times here?
Well, first of all, I was in the 8th grade when y'all had that conversation in 1983. Okay? You know what's great about it is that we have competition every day. And batting practice, Edgar was a wizard at hitting the ball down the right field line. And we would practice that, for me being a lefty, hitting it down the left field line. And the closer it got to the line, we had a little service. So you had to help the other guy out, bring him a towel, a Gatorade, and things like that, whoever lost in BP. But it's always competition, but it's fun competition. And he made us all better. And I think that people people look at BP and go, oh, it's just batting practice. No, that's where you really hone in your skills. And he took batting practice to another level. I mean, the days of, okay, take 2 pitches, hit him over, get him over, get him in. He took pride in that. And that rubbed off on the other guys on the team. Because it wasn't about, just go through the motion. You went up there in batting practice with a purpose. And he started all that for all of us.
I'm going to ask Edgar a few questions, but you guys feel free to jump in if you have any, stories or things to add or differing versions of what he has to say. But Edgar, first of all, it had to make you feel so good in Cooperstown to see so many Mariner fans. And as you said last night, the fans here mean so much to you. But it's got to feel great to be so loved, respected, and admired by this community who have been your only franchise. You've been here, you chose to make your home here, you had a chance to move on, and it had to feel really great.
Yeah, it's been amazing. If you asked me years ago that I was going to live in Seattle and have a great career with the Mariners, I would just say no chance. But it's been amazing, journey, and I'm so proud, so happy to be part of this community, live in Seattle. So proud to be able to play with the Mariners for 18 years and spend my whole career with the Mariners. It's been an amazing journey. And I was kind of emotional last night. And also when you guys, all the Mariners that went to the Hall of Fame induction, it was very emotional. But I want to thank you for being there for me, for being here last night, and for all those years. I love you guys.
Well, we love you too. I think that's pretty obvious. There was a moment in your speech in Cooperstown where you referenced a former teammate who was on the stage with you there, who was then later an opponent with the Arizona Diamondbacks, Randy Johnson. And you mentioned something that got said in the newspaper and that he came up and approached you about that. Maybe for those who didn't hear that, tell us what happened.
Well, I know what I remember is that in spring training, we're going to face the Diamondback. And somewhere right after BP, he came around, and then he came to me and said, what was that in the paper? And I was like, what paper? And then he said, don't worry, it's going to hurt, but only for a minute. And walk away. I'm like, I thought about going to Lou and say, Lou, my hamstring is really tight today.
I need a day. There's also another incident, and this is, if you haven't had a chance to read it, there's a great book Edgar and Larry Stone wrote, and it's full of the description of Edgar's time in Puerto Rico and coming up through the system. And the trials and tribulations that he felt. But there's also a side of Edgar that maybe not a lot of people know about, and this is in the book, so I think it's fair game. And I think Griffin has memories of this as well. but there was a speaker above your locker in the new clubhouse in Peoria, right? That was a little loud, and so well, Rick, you were there, right? Griffin?
Yeah, I was there. The speaker was right above Edgar's locker. We had just moved from Tempe over to Peoria, and Edgar didn't like the loud music. Somehow they decided to put the speaker right above his locker. He would come in the training room and complain to me how loud it was in front of his locker, so he would hang out even more with me in the training room. One of the spring training games, he didn't have one of his better games, and after the game, I heard all these people laughing and screaming, and Junior came in and says, "You got to come and see this." And I walked around the corner. I've never seen Edgar get mad and snap before. He picked up a bat and he beat the speaker to death. And he said, "No more loud music, no more loud music." And so everybody was wide-eyed and couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. And then Edgar just went to the weight room like nothing happened, and everybody was talking about this. The good thing about it, he went out and bought a brand new stereo system the next day, but he put the speaker on the opposite side of the room away from his locker.
Were they playing Nickelback, or what was?
It didn't matter.
You did go out and buy a nice new system the next day, but relocated the speaker.
Yes. I wasn't doing that well that spring training. I think I was already like 0 for 10. And, when you're not doing well, things bother you a little more. But yeah, I think I had a great time doing that. I thought it was fun. Plus, I was very released and ready to play. I think I fixed my swing hitting the stereo because after that, I went on a roll. I started hitting.
I'm surprised that didn't become a new drill for you, hitting a speaker off the tee. I want to just kind of open it up to everybody here and maybe just get your favorite story, memory, impression, maybe the thing you were most impressed with that Edgar did during his career, whether it was on the field or off the field, because he's well documented as somebody who's been a part of the community, does so much here, Roberto Clemente Award, so much for the Seattle area, and in fact, we're going to have a presentation later regarding that. But some memories of what he's done, what he meant to you in your career and your time here.
I'll go first. It's, Edgar's humility, I think it comes out, and we all get to see it on display, and his willingness to share credit in his Cooperstown speech and his speeches here, every speech that he's made here, when his number was retired, and I'm sure next year when the statue is unveiled, we'll hear another humble speech, and I really appreciate that. And one of my memories when Edgar came back as an instructor several years ago, started off in the minor leagues, working with the young kids, and here's a guy who's on his way to Cooperstown, 18 years with the Mariners. He could have come in and just, I'm here. Everybody should come to me and ask me questions, and just kind of let his aura just fill the room. But he comes in, as Edgar typically does, very humble, just observing, having quiet conversations, but very substantive conversations with our young players. And the other staff members having to encourage our players to go talk to him because he wasn't going to force his way in, and that's just not Edgar's way. Edgar just lets his game and his knowledge do the talking for him, and he's just one of the guys. It's really hard to believe, These two Hall of Famers just are so comfortable just being one of the guys, and that's one of the things I appreciate about Edgar almost more than anything else.
I think for me, I echo what Alvin just said. Obviously, his humility is something that we all really appreciate about Gar. For me, really, when it comes to baseball, was preparation. Just his ability to kind of, I don't know how you did it, but you crawled in the mind of a lot of pitchers and understood exactly what they do, and would also say that to other guys in the lineup. I hit like 8th or 9th, and he knew what the guy was going to do to me. So your ability to be prepared, understand what this guy out here was trying to do, was pretty incredible. And I know I was a benefactor of that and very grateful for that.
Edgar probably doesn't realize how important he was to me as an athletic trainer because I used him as an example because of his work ethic. I would oftentimes point to the young players and say, look what this guy's doing. Every day he goes in the weight room after the game for 20 to 30 minutes, whether he gets 4 hits or no hits. So he was a great example for me to be able to use. He always came to the training room early to get his treatment. He trusted the people that were in charge of his care. And he's just a great example for me as an athletic trainer. And so, Edgar, thank you for that, even though you probably didn't know that, but I utilized you a lot to help me get other players healthy, so thank you.
My favorite story about Edgar is about his sense of humor. He's got a really good one. He's very quiet and very humble, but in his last year in 2004, we're in Anaheim at a bar, outside the bar in this patio by the pool and everything, and there's Dave Valley brought these great cigars, and we're drinking cold beverages. There's Val, there's Edgar, myself, Kevin Kremen, Jeremy Reed, I think, was there, and a few other people. But this story, to give you the front side of it, involves Brett Boone. Booney and I would get on each other all the time. Hey, Riz, hey, Boone. And this went on for years, you know, and having fun and jokingly and lovingly and funny. Well, we're sitting around, and Booney's there too, and Edgar's smoking a great cigar, and we're drinking cold beverages, and all of a sudden we're there for about an hour, and Booney's getting on me again. Hey, Riz, hey, Boone. So Edgar had enough of this. So Edgar sits back, he's smoking his cigar, takes a puff on his cigar, and says, hey, Booney, don't get on Rick. He's having a better year than you are. And I go, Poppy, don't leave me. I got 2 more years with this guy. It's his last day on the road in Anaheim at the end of the 2004 season. And it's the first time in Brett Boone's life, right, Poppy, that he was speechless. Unbelievable. But this guy was so much fun to be around, a Hall of Fame person as much as a Hall of Fame player. Junior?
For me, what Edgar means to me is the guy who prepared for the game of baseball better than anybody I've ever been around. You talk about baseball knowledge, he's on the top of the list. I tell everybody that 1, 2, and 3, he kept us in shape by hitting doubles. And we'd have to score for him. You know, having a guy who only hits is his only way of affecting the outcome of the game. You know, there's no flow, and he perfected that. And, you know, like I said, it rubbed out on all of us as like he didn't take an at-bat off from the first inning to when the game was over. He prepared. He would go in there and watch video. He would get on the bike. He'd run sprints up and down the walkway. And when there was sometimes I'd be in there walking back, and he's sweating, and I'm like, where did you come from? I was in the sauna for a minute swinging. And I'd be looking at him like, dude, it is 37 degrees outside. And he'd be like, yeah, this is what I got to do. You get to run around in the outfield. I've got to get ready. And it really took me back because I was like, okay. And then I DH'd my last 2 years, and I said, now I have a whole different respect level for Edgar and what he's done, because it's the toughest job in baseball to just hit and sit down and then wait again. And he did it, and I meant every word I said when I was at the Hall of Fame is that he deserved to be here, and now I get to sit there and have somebody at my table, and we can drink and laugh and conversate, because I was so tired of looking at the Yankees, Baltimore, and everybody else who got teammates. Now I have a teammate, and hopefully in a couple years we get one more.
Edgar, with the stories we read in the book about your growing up and hitting pebbles and hitting raindrops and honing that swing and working with your cousin Carmelo, and then getting up to the Mariners organization where you weren't sure you're going to make it in the big leagues, and then when you did make it, worrying about maybe getting traded and all that kind of thing, and you never wavered in your commitment to this community. You didn't want to go. Some players had the opportunity, and wanted to get out. Other players like to be moving around to cities maybe closer to their home. You've adopted this as your home. What made Seattle so attractive to you and Holly and the kids?
Yeah, I think the Seattle, the beauty of the city is incredible. But what attracted me the most is the people. The city have the greatest people. It's friendly, polite, and as a family, that's what you're looking for. And we can't say enough about this great city and their people.
With regard to your career and how hard you worked and the success you had, when you were up on that stage at the Hall of Fame and had gone through that long wait, tell us about when you actually got the call, what was going through your mind on that day when they let you know you were a Hall of Famer.
It took a long time, and through all those years waiting, I think I was already processing, and in my mind, I was ready for either way. Obviously, you wanted this so bad, but I was ready for either scenarios. But when you get the call, it happens. You think your mind goes back all the way to those years playing Little League, playing all those leagues in Puerto Rico, and all those years playing in the minor leagues. And it's a lot of emotions that go through, but also I felt a lot of satisfaction to, be able to close this journey with the ultimate reward, which is being a Hall of Famer, being around in the same place with the best players in the game, and one of my best teammates, the great Ken Griffin Jr., Randy Johnson, and hopefully soon Ichiro and Lupinella.
Well, it's been an amazing journey for you and for Junior. I know that having two Hall of Famers is just the beginning for this franchise. There are more to come. We've got Dan and Alvin, Mariner Hall of Famers, and we want to thank Junior, Rick, Dan, Alvin for being here. Thank you guys for coming out for this. And Edgar, somebody told me they weren't going to let me get away without asking you this. Have you ever thought about growing the stash back?
A few days ago, I knew that I was going to have a speech yesterday. I came really close to buy a fake one, and right after closing, go down, and then say, thank you, Seattle, I love you.
That's a good way. That's a good way to wrap it up. Let's hear it once again for our Junior, Rick, Dan, Alvin, and Edgar Martinez. Thank you guys for being here. Let's get ready to play ball.